This happened to me a few years ago on one Halloween night I'll never forget. I was trick-or-treating with my friends Ben and Mia. We were just three kids, hyped up on sugar and excitement, making our way through the neighborhood, filling our bags with candy, and laughing as we went from house to house. We had hit most of the houses by then, and were about to head home. But that's when I saw the last house at the end of the road, just past the others. It was set a bit farther back from the street, looking like it had been there forever, old and creaky, and there were no decorations anywhere. Something about it felt wrong, but it was Halloween, and we were in that spooky, thrill-seeking mood. I convinced Ben and Mia to come with me for one last try. After all, we'd been to almost every single house in the neighborhood, and we figured maybe, just maybe, there'd be some extra candy for us too. When we got to the front door, the lights were on inside, even though everything around it was dark. We knocked on the front door, then rang the bell, but nothing happened. It was dead quiet. But the lights were definitely on, so we rang again, still standing there with our bags open, expecting someone to answer. After a while, we heard footsteps inside, and finally, the door opened. A tall man stood there, and he looked a bit weird. He seemed annoyed at first, like we were interrupting him or something. But then, as if something changed his mind, he just gave us a smile and invited us in, saying he had some candy inside. I felt a weird twist in my stomach, like I shouldn't go in. But when you're a kid, the promise of candy can overpower any sense of fear or doubt. So, we stepped inside. He closed the door behind us, and the house felt strange. It was really cold inside. Even though all the lights were on, it was really strange. Everything inside the house seemed to creak around us. The man told us that the candy was upstairs. I hesitated, looking at Ben and Mia, but Ben really didn't care and told us that he'd go check it out. Mia and I waited downstairs, while Ben followed the man up the staircase. I was already regretting this, standing there in this dim-lit room, looking around at the old wallpaper peeling from the walls and the dusty furniture that just surrounded us. Then, suddenly, I heard Ben scream. It was loud and desperate, and cut right through the silence. My stomach dropped. I looked up, and even before I had time to think, I saw Ben bolting down the stairs. His face was so pale, I could instantly see that he was scared. Right behind him was the man, and he wasn't just following Ben. He was holding a knife, and I couldn't believe it. But there it was. The man's face was twisted into a horrible expression that was nothing like the smile that he'd showed us before. Without thinking, I grabbed Mia's arm and we ran out of the house. We burst through the front door, stumbling into the cold night air. I heard the man's footsteps behind us, and I could feel my heart pounding in my throat. As we ran across his yard, we didn't stop. We dashed through the bushes by the edge of the yard, crouching low and trying to stay as still as possible. We could hear his footsteps coming closer, crunching through the dead leaves. He was talking to himself, like an angry, crazy person. I just held my breath, praying that he wouldn't find us. The man walked right past us, looking for us in the opposite direction. We stayed hidden, barely holding our breath, watching him search for us. And then, finally, he went back inside his house. As soon as we saw him go inside, we took off running as fast as we could. We didn't stop until we were back in our neighborhood, back where there were lights and people, where we finally felt safe again. We ran straight to our parents, breathless and shaking, telling them what had happened, though I don't think they believed us at first. But then, seeing how terrified we were, they took us seriously and called the police. The police went to the man's house later that night, but when they got there, he was already gone. They didn't find a trace of him, like he disappeared into thin air. But they did find something else. When they searched upstairs, they discovered old, dusty bedrooms, and in those rooms, they found something that still makes my skin crawl. There were bodies of kids, just like us, tucked away, hidden from the world, like they've been kept in there for years. We never saw that man again, and the police never found him. Now, every Halloween, I think back to that house, to that night, and I still get a chill down my spine. If there's one thing I learned from this situation, it's that sometimes the scariest things on Halloween aren't the costumes or the haunted houses. Sometimes the real monsters are the ones waiting just past the last house at the end of the road.